5 years ago, my son Jake disappeared during a mountain climbing accident. They never found his body, but after months of searching, he was declared dead. I held a memorial service. I mourned him every single day, but last month at 3:17 a.m. my phone rang. Jake's name lit up the screen. I answered, and a voice I'd know anywhere said, "Dad, I'm coming home." The person standing at my door looked exactly like my missing son, but something was terribly, terribly wrong. Before I share what really happened, let me know in the comments what time you're watching this and where you are. The shrill ring of my phone cut through the October night like a knife. 3:17 a.m. The red digits on my bedside clock burned into my retinas as I fumbled for the device, my heart already hammering against my ribs. Nobody calls at this hour unless someone's dead or dying. But when I saw the name on the screen, my world stopped spinning. Jake. 5 years. 5 goddamn years since that name had lit up my phone. 5 years since the search and rescue teams gave up looking for my son's body in the Cascade Mountains. 5 years since I'd heard his voice, seen his smile, felt his presence in this empty house that still echoed with his laughter. My thumb hovered over the answer button, trembling like a leaf in a Portland winter storm. This had to be some sick joke. Someone had gotten hold of his old number, maybe found his phone in the wilderness. But deep in my chest, something stirred. That primal instinct every parent knows, the one that can pick their child's cry out of a crowd of thousands. "Hello?" My voice cracked like I was 13 again. "Dad, it's me." The voice hit me like a freight train. Older, weathered, but unmistakably Jake. "I'm coming home." The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. I stared at the ceiling of my craftsman-style home, the same ceiling I'd stared at through countless sleepless nights, wondering if my boy was cold, if he was scared, if he was even still breathing somewhere out there in the Oregon wilderness. I scrambled for the phone, but the line was dead. 20 minutes later, I was pacing my living room like a caged animal, still in my old Trailblazers t-shirt and boxers, when 3 soft knocks echoed from my front door. My bare feet slapped against the cold floor as I rushed to the entrance, my hands shaking so badly I could barely work the deadbolt. The porch light illuminated a figure I'd seen in my dreams every night for 5 years. Jake, taller than I remembered, broader through the shoulders, with a beard that made him look like he'd stepped out of a Mountain Man catalog. His clothes were worn but clean, his hiking boots scuffed but sturdy. But it was his eyes, those same green eyes that had looked up at me when he took his first steps, when I taught him to throw a curveball in our backyard, when he'd graduated from Portland State with his engineering degree. "Hey, Dad." I didn't remember moving, but suddenly my arms were around him, pulling him against my chest, like I could somehow absorb him back into my life through sheer force of will. He felt solid, real warm, not the ghost I'd been chasing through my memories for half a decade. "Jake, Jesus Christ, Jake." The words tumbled out between my sobs. "Where have you been? We looked everywhere. The rangers, the volunteers, we searched for months. Your mother died thinking you were—" "I know, Dad. I know." His voice was different, deeper, more careful, like every word had to be weighed before it left his mouth. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I pulled back to look at him, to memorize every line of his face, every gray thread in his dark hair that hadn't been there before. This was my son, my boy, my Jake. But as I held him there on my front porch, with the October wind whipping through the Douglas firs that lined our quiet Hawthorne neighborhood street, something nagged at the back of my mind. Something about the way he held himself, the way his eyes didn't quite meet mine, the way his smile seemed just a fraction too practiced. But hell, 5 years in the wilderness would change anyone. Dawn painted my kitchen golden as I scrambled eggs the way Jake had always loved them, fluffy with cream cheese. The coffee maker gurgled, filling the house with an aroma that had been my only companion through too many lonely mornings. "Smells incredible, Dad." Jake stood in the doorway, hair damp, wearing an old Oregon Duck sweatshirt from his bed. It fit differently now, tighter across a broader chest. The lanky boy had become a man with the build of someone who'd survived on his own terms. "Your favorite?" I said, sliding eggs onto a plate with thick-cut bacon from Powell's downtown. He sat at our oak table, same spot he'd claimed since childhood. But his movements were more deliberate now, like he was constantly aware of his surroundings. Rex patted in with morning enthusiasm, then stopped short. The golden retriever's tail wagged hesitantly. 5 years was a lifetime in dog years, but Rex never forgot the boy who used to sneak him scraps. "Hey there, old boy," Jake said softly. Rex approached cautiously before his tail went helicopter mode, accepting the bacon piece that appeared like magic. "He's gotten slower," Jake observed, scratching Rex's graying ears. "We all have." I poured coffee into his old ceramics glass mug. Lopsided, but perfect. "He missed you. We both did." Jake's eyes swept the unchanged kitchen. Vintage Oregon postcards on the fridge, cast iron skillet on its hook, Charlotte's herb garden visible through the window. I'd kept everything exactly the same. "Mind if I check out my room?" I followed him upstairs, watching as he paused at his threshold. I'd kept it like a shrine. Engineering textbooks on the desk, hiking maps thumbtacked to Wall's guitar in the corner. Only additions were storage boxes from after Charlotte's funeral. Jake stepped inside, fingers trailing over familiar surfaces with something like surprise. He sat on his twin bed, testing the mattress, then lay back with arms behind his head. Achingly familiar. "I used to dream about this room," he said quietly. "About coming home." Morning light caught the lines around his eyes, weathered skin, silver threads in his beard. 5 years had transformed my 24-year-old son into someone who looked like he'd lived multiple lifetimes. The boy who'd left for that camping trip was gone. The man lying on this childhood bed had chopped wood, hauled water, and survived things I couldn't imagine. His movements were careful, calculated. His eyes held depths that hadn't been there before, but he was here. He was alive. He was home. Sunday afternoon sunlight streamed through our living room windows, illuminating family photos on the mantelpiece. Jake sat in Charlotte's old burgundy armchair, cradling coffee like precious cargo. I positioned myself on the couch close enough to catch every word. 5 years is a long time, I said gently. Where do we start? His eyes drifted to the photos. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, camping trips to Crater Lake. His younger self smiled back from behind glass, carefree and unburdened. "The fall wasn't supposed to happen," he began, voice carrying weight. "I was following trail markers on Mount Hood, but weather turned fast. You know how it gets in October. Clear 1 minute, white out the next." I nodded, remembering my own close calls in the Cascades. I slipped near Crater Rock, tumbled maybe 50 feet. When I came to my leg was busted pack, gone trail, nowhere in sight. He stared into his coffee. I kept thinking rescue teams would find me, kept listening for helicopters' voices. But snow started early, covered my tracks. We searched for months. Rangers, volunteers, even dogs from Washington State. I heard them sometimes echoing off canyon walls. But I was deep in backcountry by then, following water sources, finding shelter. My leg healed crooked. Still hurts when it rains. He rubbed his left thigh. After the first winter, I realized nobody was coming. Learn fast or die. This Jake spoke in measured tones, eyes constantly scanning exits. Habits carved by years of hypervigilance. How did you survive? You pick things up. Old cabins scattered through the forest. Abandoned hunting lodges, ranger stations. I'd hole up during bad weather, move when supplies ran thin. Learned to fish with handmade hooks, set snares for rabbits. His smile was rueful. "Remember complaining about your camping trips? Turns out you taught me more than I realized." Something in his voice made me lean forward. "Your friends from college?" Emma Marcus, the engineering crew, they never stopped asking. "Emma still sends Christmas cards. Maybe you'd want to..." "Not yet, Dad." The words came quick, sharp. "I'm not ready for all that. 5 years changes a person. I need time to figure out who I am now before facing who I used to be." I studied his face, noting how he deflected away from specifics. Some details seemed crystal clear. The fall, broken leg, survival tactics. Others remained vague, like viewing memories through frosted glass. "It's hard to remember everything clearly," he added, reading my thoughts. "Trauma does things to your mind. Some days blur together, especially early months. I was pretty messed up for a while." That made sense. Post-traumatic stress could scramble anyone's recollections, create gaps where the mind protected itself from unbearable memories. "The important thing is your home," I said, reaching across to squeeze his shoulder. "Everything else we'll work through together." Jake nodded, but his eyes had that distant quality again, like seeing something beyond our walls. "I learned to survive," he said quietly, "but I never stopped thinking about home. About you. About getting back to this room, these pictures, this life." His voice cracked slightly. "There were nights I wasn't sure I'd make it. Nights when giving up seemed easier than taking another step. I felt tears prick my eyes. But you did make it. You're here." "Yeah." He managed a genuine smile, the first I'd seen since he'd walked through my door. "I'm here, 5 years of solitude would change anyone. The boy who'd left that October morning was gone, replaced by this careful, weathered man who spoke in survival terms and flinched at sudden movements. But underneath it all, I could still see my son. Monday morning, Jake filled the passenger seat of my Ford F-150 as we drove to Thompson Construction. The familiar route through southeast Portland felt different with him there. Hopeful, like the future had possibilities again. "You don't have to jump back into work," I said, pulling into our lot. "Take time to adjust, maybe see a counselor." "Dad, I need this." His voice carried quiet determination. "Sitting around thinking about 5 years won't help. I need to feel useful again, normal again." Our offices occupied a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial fixtures. The moment we walked in, heads turned. Dave Martinez, my CFO, nearly dropped his coffee. Linda Pierce from accounting gasped. These people had attended Jake's memorial service. "Jesus Christ, Jake," Dave's voice cracked. "Is that really you?" "Hey, Mr. Martinez." Jake's smile seemed genuine, though his shoulders tensed at the attention. "Good to see you." The reunion was emotional but brief. Jake handled questions with practiced ease, sticking to his survival story. But I watched him absorb every detail of our operations. Contracts we were bidding, projects in development, who handled what responsibilities. "Things have changed since I was an intern," he observed, studying our project board. "Looks like you've expanded into commercial development. Had to adapt after the recession. We're bidding on major projects now. Shopping centers, office complexes. Different league than custom homes." Jake's eyes lit up. "Mind if I look at current proposals? I'd love to understand where the company's headed." "You just got back. You don't need to." "I want to help build our future together," he said earnestly. 5 years taught me about problem-solving, seeing projects through when everything goes wrong. Maybe that experience could be useful. By Wednesday, Jake had claimed a corner desk and was poring over blueprints like he'd never left. His questions were sharp, insightful, not basic relearning, but probing analysis of someone who understood construction fundamentally. "He's different," Linda mentioned during our staff meeting. "More focused, professional. The old Jake was sweet, but scattered. This Jake pays attention to everything." She was right. The Jake I remembered had been enthusiastic, but easily distracted. This version moved with purpose, his questions, precise observations, astute. "The Riverside Mall project," he said Friday afternoon, spreading plans across my desk. "This is the big one, isn't it? Could set us up for the next decade." I nodded, impressed. In 1 week, he'd identified our most crucial contract, without anyone explicitly mentioning its importance. "I've been thinking about logistics," he continued, "and I might have ideas about cost optimization that could give us an edge in bidding." His dedication was infectious. For the first time in years, I stayed late, not because I had nowhere to go, but because I was genuinely excited about our work together. The boy who'd left 5 years ago had been eager but unfocused. The man sitting across from me understood business strategy, recognized critical opportunities, and approached problems with methodical precision that impressed everyone in the office. The conference room at Riverside Development Group felt like a funeral parlor. Patricia Williams, the project manager, sat across from me with that practiced sympathy reserved for delivering bad news. Jake positioned himself at my shoulder notepad, ready, the picture of a dedicated son. "I'm sorry, Bill," Patricia said. "The board made their decision this morning. Morrison Construction came in with a bid we couldn't ignore." My stomach dropped. "How much lower?" She hesitated. "50,000. The number hit like a physical blow. $50,000, less than 3% of our total bid. After months of preparation, site surveys, and sleepless nights, refining every detail, we'd lost by a margin so slim it felt cruel. "That's impossible," I managed. Our numbers were razor-thin already. Morrison's proposal was comprehensive and competitive. They clearly did their homework. Jake leaned forward, perfectly calibrated concern on his face. "Ms. Williams, when did Morrison submit their final bid?" "Yesterday afternoon, just before deadline." Blood drained from my face. Yesterday afternoon, 24 hours after I'd finalized our numbers with Dave and Jake in my locked office. The same numbers Morrison had somehow undercut by exactly 50,000. The drive back passed in stunned silence. Jake stared out the window, occasionally shaking his head in apparent disbelief. "Dad, I'm so sorry," he said as we pulled into our lot. "I know how much this project meant. 3 months of work," I said hollowly. 3 months of planning, and they beat us by 50 grand. In my office, I pulled up bid documents while Jake paced behind my desk. The Riverside Mall wasn't just another contract. It was our ticket to the big leagues, the job that would establish Thompson Construction as a major player in Portland's commercial scene. Someone leaked our numbers, I said, scrolling through emails and phone logs. That's the only way Morrison could bid so precisely under us. Jake stopped pacing. You think someone here sold us out? The math doesn't lie. I pulled up employee records, client databases. Only 3 people knew the final figures. Me, you, and Dave. What about subcontractors, architects? Maybe someone overheard. I shook my head. We kept final numbers close to the vest. Even Linda only saw partial figures. Jake pulled up a chair, worry etched on his face. Let me help you go through everything. Phone records, emails, meeting notes. Whatever you need. For 2 hours we combed through digital traces of the Riverside project. Jake proved remarkably thorough, asking about email security, wondering if phones might be compromised, even suggesting we check for listening devices. This is devastating, he said during a break, rubbing his temples. After everything you've built, to lose it to corporate espionage. His anger seemed genuine, his frustration palpable. If I hadn't known better, I'd have sworn he was as blindsided as I was. We'll figure it out, I said, grateful for his support. Whoever did this will find them. But watching Morrison Construction's logo flash across the evening news, celebrating their biggest contract win in company history, I couldn't shake the feeling we were chasing ghosts. Someone on the inside had betrayed us, but who I trusted everyone in that room. Midnight. My home office felt like a prison cell as I stared at spreadsheets that spelled doom for Thompson Construction. Without the Riverside contract, we had maybe 3 months before bankruptcy. Jake appeared with 2 coffee mugs, just like Charlotte used to do during my late-night sessions. The memory stung. My wife standing in that exact spot, making me promise I'd never risk everything we'd built together. You should sleep, Dad, Jake said, settling across from my desk. Staring at those numbers won't change them. There has to be a way, I muttered. Maybe extend our credit line call in favors? Jake sipped his coffee thoughtfully. What about the house? I looked up sharply. What about it? You own it outright, right? Mom always said you paid off the mortgage early. His voice was gentle, careful. In the wilderness, when you're down to your last supplies, sometimes you risk everything to survive another day. The suggestion hit like cold water. Jake, I can't mortgage this house. It's all I have left of your mother. Not sell it, Dad. Just leverage it. Use the equity for a business loan buy time to rebuild. He leaned forward, earnest. 5 years taught me that survival isn't about playing safe. Sometimes you bet everything on yourself. I stared at family photos lining my desk. Charlotte and me at our wedding, Jake's graduation, Christmas mornings in this house. Everything we'd built reduced to collateral in a desperate gamble. The bank would want a solid business plan, I said slowly. Then we'll give them one. Show them Thompson Construction isn't going anywhere. Jake's eyes shone with determination. Dad, your reputation in this city is worth more than any contract Morrison stole. His faith was touching naive, maybe, but absolutely genuine. My son back from 5 years of hell, ready to risk the family home on his belief we could rebuild together. The paperwork would take weeks. We start tomorrow morning. Call the bank first thing. Jake reached across and squeezed my shoulder. We're in this together. Family first, right? That's what Mom always said. Charlotte had said that. But she'd also made me promise never to gamble with our security. Yet here I was considering exactly that because my miraculously returned son believed in me. The house is worth about $400,000, I said quietly. If we get a line of credit for half that, $200,000 would keep the company running for months. Long enough to land new contracts, rebuild our reputation. Jake's voice carried quiet confidence of someone who'd survived impossible odds. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. I pulled out a legal pad, sketching numbers, interest rates, monthly payments, worst-case scenarios, the mathematics of desperation. We do this, there's no safety net, I warned. If the company fails, we lose everything. Jake nodded solemnly. Then we make sure it doesn't fail. His simple faith in our future and the bond between father and son was overwhelming. This boy who'd survived 5 years alone in the wilderness, who'd found his way home against impossible odds. If he believed we could rebuild, maybe we could. At 2 a.m., I signed preliminary paperwork Jake had helped me prepare. His unwavering confidence had convinced me to bet everything on a dream. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was risking the house Charlotte and I had built together to save the company we'd started together, all because the son we'd raised together had returned with wisdom earned through suffering. Family first, just like Charlotte always said. 2 weeks had passed since I'd signed away our family home as collateral. The business loan had come through, $200,000 sitting in our company account, like both salvation and damnation. Jake had thrown himself into rebuilding efforts with an intensity that impressed our entire staff. I was reviewing contractor bids when my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed across the screen, probably another telemarketer. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me hesitate. I answered on the fourth ring. Thompson Construction, this is Bill. Silence, then breathing, labored desperate. Dad, the voice was barely a whisper, cracked and hoarse. It's Jake. Please, you have to listen to me. My blood turned to ice. Jake was downstairs in the conference room presenting renovation concepts to the Hartley Group. I could hear his confident voice drifting up through the floor vents. Who is this? I demanded. It's me, Dad. It's really me. The voice was Jake's, but weaker, frightened, urgent. The person living in our house, working at the company, that's not me. The world tilted sideways. That's impossible. A hiker found me 3 days ago in Olympic National Forest. I've been trapped in a cabin. I'm using his satellite phone. The words came in a desperate rush. Dad, the person with you. His name is Jordan. He's my twin brother. My hands started shaking. Downstairs, I could still hear the other Jake's voice, smooth and professional. This is insane, I whispered. Jake is downstairs right now. He's been home for 3 weeks. Dad, please believe me. I don't have much time. If this is really you, I said, my voice shaking, prove it. Tell me something only Jake would know. A pause. Then the scar on your left shoulder. You got it when I was 7 building my treehouse. The 2x4 slipped and caught you. You bled all over my new sneakers, but you finished the treehouse anyway because you'd promised. You never told Mom how bad it was. My vision blurred. I'd never told that story to anyone. The scar was hidden under my shirt, barely visible. Oh God, I breathed. Jake, is it really you? I'm coming home right now, Dad. I'll be there in 2 hours. Please just wait for me at the house. Don't let Jordan know about this call. I'll explain everything when I get there. Jake, where exactly are you? How do I know? I have to go. The hiker is driving me back to Portland now. Dad, please. Just wait for me at home. Don't tell him anything. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart hammering against my ribs. Downstairs, the meeting was wrapping up. I could hear chairs scraping handshakes. The sound of Jake, Jordan, walking our clients to the door. Footsteps on the stairs, coming toward my office. 2 Jakes, twin brothers. One trapped in the wilderness, one living in my house. But which one was telling the truth? The drive home felt like traveling through a nightmare. Jordan sat beside me in the F-150, casually scrolling his phone, completely unaware that his entire charade had crumbled with a single phone call. Every word he spoke, about dinner, about tomorrow's meetings, sounded like lies wrapped in my dead son's voice. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as we pulled into our driveway. Inside, Jordan kicked off his shoes and collapsed onto the sofa with his usual beer, the picture of casual comfort. But now I saw it all differently. The calculated way he'd claimed Jake's favorite chair, the practiced ease of his belonging, the theft of a life that was never his. For 40 agonizing minutes, I watched this stranger wearing my son's face. Then came 3 sharp knocks at the door. What the fuck? He started, then stopped as I opened the door. The man standing on my porch looked like Jordan's ghost. Same face, same build, but hollow-eyed and skeletal, wearing clothes that hung like rags on his starved frame. Behind him stood a bearded hiker in flannel. Jordan's beer bottle slipped from his fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor in an explosion of glass and foam. Dad, the real Jake whispered, his voice breaking. Jordan shot to his feet, glass crunching under his bare soles. No, 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 no. Found him chained in a hunting cabin, the hiker said grimly. Kid's been there for months, barely alive. Jake leaned against the doorframe, too weak to stand alone, but his eyes, those were Jake's eyes filled with the pain and love I remembered. Hello, Jordan, Jake said quietly. The name hit Jordan like a physical blow, his face contorted with 21 years of rage finally unleashed. You want the truth? Jordan screamed, his voice cracking. Fine, here's your fucking truth. He began pacing like a caged animal, glass, cutting his feet, leaving bloody footprints on the floor. Mom dragged me to Fairview Training Center when I was 8 years old. 21 years ago, she told them I was dangerous, unstable, that I attacked other kids. She signed papers, paid money, and walked away like I was garbage. His voice rose to a roar. She came home and told you I was missing, lost in the woods? You searched for what, a week? Then you gave up and lived your perfect little life with your perfect little son." Jake's face crumpled with understanding and grief. I lived in that institutional hell for 21 years. Jordan's tears mixed with spit as he raged. 21 years of medications that turned my brain to mush, of being forgotten, of rotting away while you played happy family. "Jordan, we didn't know," I started. "Bullshit!" The word exploded from him. "You knew exactly what she was. You knew she couldn't handle a kid who didn't fit her picture-perfect fantasy, but you let her throw me away because it was easier." He spun toward Jake, his face twisted with decades of accumulated hatred. "And you got everything. A father who gave a damn, a home, a future love. Everything that should have been mine too. When I escaped 2 years ago, I found you living your precious little life, completely clueless about the brother who'd been erased from existence. So I decided to take what should have been mine from the beginning." Jordan's voice dropped to something venomous and broken. "I wanted you to feel what I felt. The abandonment, the betrayal. I wanted to destroy everything you loved piece by piece like you and Mom destroyed me. I kidnapped him," he said, pointing at Jake. "Chained him up like an animal. Made him watch while I stole his life, his father, his future. Just like you made me watch while you forgot I ever existed." The room fell silent except for Jordan's ragged breathing. "You threw me away like I was nothing," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Both of you. You erased me and moved on like I never mattered." Jake stepped forward, tears streaming down his gaunt face, and did something that shattered what was left of my heart. He opened his arms to his brother. Jordan stared at Jake's outstretched arms like they were a mirage, something too impossible to trust. Blood seeped from the glass cuts on his feet, mixing with tears that had been 21 years in the making. "You should hate me," Jordan whispered, his voice raw and broken. "I kidnapped you. I chained you up. I stole your life." Jake stepped closer, his skeletal frame trembling with exhaustion, but his eyes steady, with something I'd almost forgotten existed in our family unconditional love. "You're my brother," Jake said simply. "We should have grown up together. We should have shared birthdays, fought over toys, protected each other from Mom's bad days. None of this was your fault." I watched my sons reunite and felt something break open in my chest. Without thinking, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around both of them, holding them like I should have held them 21 years ago, like I would have if I'd known one of them was out there, forgotten and alone. "I destroyed everything," Jordan sobbed. "The company, the house, your relationship with Dad." "No," I said, finding my voice at last. "I destroyed everything. I failed both of you." The words felt like swallowing broken glass. I didn't know what Charlotte did, but I should have. A father should know when one of his children disappears. I should have kept looking. I should have questioned her story. Jordan looked at me with eyes that held decades of pain. "You really didn't know?" "I swear to you, son, I had no idea. If I'd known you were alive, if I'd known where you were, I would have torn down that place with my bare hands to bring you home." For a moment, the three of us stood in the wreckage of our living room. Glass and beer and blood and 21 years of lies scattered across the floor. Then Jake took another step forward and wrapped his arms around his twin brother. Jordan collapsed into the embrace like a dam bursting, 21 years of institutional coldness melting away in the warmth of human touch. They held each other while I called 911, while paramedics checked Jake's condition, while police took statements that would never fully capture the complexity of what had happened to our family. 6 months later, the new house in southeast Portland was smaller than our old one, but it felt bigger somehow. Maybe because it held 3 people instead of one lonely old man rattling around in rooms full of ghosts. Jordan sat across from Dr. Martinez in our living room, discussing his progress, with the kind of clinical detachment that masked remarkable healing. The dissociative identity disorder diagnosis had explained so much: how trauma had fractured his sense of self, how survival had required him to become different people at different times. The episodes are becoming less frequent, Dr. Martinez noted, reviewing her charts. The medication is helping stabilize your mood swings, and the therapy is giving you tools to process the institutional trauma. "I might still have bad days," Jordan admitted, glancing at Jake and me. "Days when I wake up angry at the world, when I want to burn everything down. But now I remember why I want to stay." Jake, who'd gained back 30 pounds and looked more like his old self every day, reached over and squeezed his brother's shoulder. "We're not going anywhere. The Second Chances Foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined when we'd first discussed it. What started as a way to help kids aging out of the foster system had expanded to include support for families torn apart by institutional failures, mental health resources for trauma survivors, and advocacy for children lost in the cracks of bureaucratic systems. Jordan had thrown himself into the work with the passion of someone who understood firsthand what it meant to be forgotten. He spoke at conferences, testified before state legislators, and personally mentored dozens of young adults trying to rebuild their lives after institutional care. Every kid deserves a family, he'd say at the end of his presentations. Every child deserves to be seen, to be valued, to know that someone in this world gives a damn whether they live or die. Thompson Construction had not only survived, but thrived. The publicity around our story, carefully managed to protect Jordan's privacy while highlighting systemic issues, had brought us more business than we could handle. We'd hired 12 new employees and opened a second office. But the real success wasn't measured in contracts or revenue. It was measured in Sunday dinners around our kitchen table and Jake and Jordan's easy laughter as they argued over football games. In the way Jordan had started calling me Dad again instead of Bill. Sometimes I caught myself watching them together. Two men who shared a face but had lived completely different lives, and marveling at the resilience of the human heart. Jake had every reason to hate his brother, and Jordan had every reason to hate the world. Instead, they'd chosen love. "You know what I learned?" Jordan said one evening as we sat on our back porch watching the Oregon sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to write a different ending." He was right. We couldn't change. The past 21 years couldn't undo Charlotte's choices, or the system's failures, or the pain that had shaped us all. But we could choose how our story ended. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is forgiveness and a second chance. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize God works in mysterious ways. 21 years ago, I thought I'd lost one son to the wilderness and buried the other in my heart. I never imagined that God had a plan to bring both my boys home even through the darkest circumstances. This true story taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about forgiveness, second chances, and the courage to love, even when love seems impossible. Jordan's pain could have destroyed us all, but instead it became the bridge that brought us back together. Sometimes what we think is our greatest tragedy becomes God's greatest gift. As Grandpa stories go, this isn't the typical tale you'd expect to hear around a dinner table, but it's my true story, and it's taught me that no child should ever feel forgotten or abandoned. Every kid deserves to know they matter, that someone is fighting for them even when hope seems lost. The Lord has a way of turning our deepest wounds into our greatest strengths. Jordan's 21 years of suffering weren't wasted. They became the foundation for helping other forgotten children find their way home. Through our Second Chances Foundation, we've seen God work miracles in families just like ours. I share these grandpa stories not for sympathy, but because I believe every true story has the power to change someone's life. Maybe there's a parent out there who needs to hear that it's never too late to fight for your child. Maybe there's someone who's given up hope who needs to remember that God's timing isn't our timing. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me about your own second chances. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more stories about family forgiveness and the miracles that happen when we refuse to give up on each other, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more families who need to know they're not alone. Remember, it's never too late for love to win.